Welcome back. In the last lesson, we used the pivot transformation to create our case count and the death count columns. But the one thing we got left to do is to create this country code 2-digit column because we got the country and the 3-digit country code, but we don't have the 2-digit country code. So we use a lookup transformation to get the country code 2-digit from the lookup file that we uploaded into our storage account. Let's switch over to the Azure portal and then get started. Here we are in the data factory. The first thing we want to do is to create a data set for our lookup file. So let's do that from here. Click New Dataset, and this is on our Data Lake Storage Gen 2, and click Continue. And this is a delimited text file, and we want to call this one as ds_country lookup. And we got a link service already, which is our data lake. And let's browse to your file that we uploaded earlier. And this is under lookup, and this is our CSV file. So let's click OK. And we know the file has got a header, and we got a fixed schema for that one. So we can import the schema from the file itself. Let's click OK, and let's preview the data to make sure that's OK as well. So we got the data here. So we got the country 2-digit country code, 3-digit country code, and the continent and the population, which is great. So while we are here, it looks like I made an error in my naming standards for this dataset, which we created earlier. So let me just change that from DF to DS. It shouldn't cause any problems in the data flow. Let's switch to the data flow and start creating a source for that dataset we just created. And I'm going to call this one as country lookup, and we are going to have a dataset for that. We've already created that one, so that's okay. We can leave the rest as it is, and we don't need to do any projections there because they're all strings apart from the population, which we can change that to an integer. And let's have a look at the data just to see whether that's come through. Okay, that looks perfectly okay. And let's now create the lookup transformation. So if you click on the plus here and then pick up lookup. So that is going to be my lookup country. And the primary stream is the cases and deaths file. So before we carry on further, the lookup transformation works very similar to a left out to join and a joint transformation. So it takes that stream and then does the left out to join to this one. And then it'll give you the values from here joined up to the data coming from the left-hand side. So let's pick the lookup stream. So that is the country lookup. And so there are a few options you need to understand. So when you join, in some cases, you might match on multiple records. In our case, we are going to use the conditions country in our conditions. So we know there is only one record per country within the lookup file. But if you are using a file in another scenario where you got duplicates, then you want to specify whether you want to match on multiple records. In that case, you would take that. Otherwise, if you do a match, then if you got multiple records, then whether you want to pick any row, so you leave the decision to data flow, or you can specify the first row or the last row. So that is something to bear in mind. Lookup conditions, we need to specify the condition here. So I'm going to join on the country on both sides. So it's going to do a left out to join for me. But if you want to add either non-equality conditions, you can do that as well. So you got the equals and non-equals here, but you need to be careful. You don't want to end up having Cartesian products, and the joins will be quite slow in that case. The next thing to look at is optimize. There is something more to this than just partitioning. So you've got the option to broadcast the data. So you can leave the broadcast to data flow, or you can say, I want to broadcast the data. So what broadcast means is everything we do within data flow is run on a Spark cluster. Spark works on a distributed computing infrastructure. So if you click on broadcast as fixed, or even if data flow decides to broadcast, it'll push all of the data into every single node. So you want to make sure that the nodes have got enough memory, and you've got memory optimized nodes so that they can fit the lookup data entirely in every node, and you get the best performance out of them. So we leave it on auto, and let's have a look at inspect. So here you can see all the columns that are coming out. As you can see, these are the columns from the left, which is the cases and deaths file. And then you've got the columns coming out of the lookup table as well. As you can see, we got duplicate columns and country codes and things like that. So what we'll do is actually, once we finish this one, we'll select transformation, and then we'll remove the columns we don't need. So let's have a look at the data coming out. Okay, we got our results back. So we got the country from both files, we got the country code, we got the population. Let's scroll across to the right and we should have so we have got the country code, 2-digit, 3-digit and the continent here as well actually. So, which is great. And now we'll write the select transformation so that actually we get the output we want. So let's do a select transformation here. Click on that one. Select, let's call it select for sync. This is what we are going to do to put it into sync. So let's have the country information on the top so we can leave that one as it is. We can take out this country code and let's replace it with this country code here. And let's move the country code 3-digit into here as well. Or let's leave the population data as it is. And we wanted to have the cases count next, so that would be in here. And we want to call that as cases count. So let's rename that to cases count. And then we want the deaths count next to that, and we wanted the reported date next to that one and this source. And we can delete this country, which is duplicate, and we don't need the continent, and we've already got the population. So that is the structure we wanted to have for our output file. Let's preview the data to make sure that's what we are seeing. Okay, so we got the country. Country's got 2-digit, 3-digit population cases count and deaths count. So so we got some data appearing here for these days. And then if I scroll to the right, we got the reported date and this source here as well. This user interface is not that friendly, so you gotta scroll down all the time just to see the columns. But yeah, Microsoft has been updating the software every so often. So hopefully, we'll have an update which will fix these issues. Okay, so that's the end of this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.